Hello, happy Earth Day 2021. My name is John Parks. I am the chapter chair of the Climate Reality Project's Northern Colorado chapter, and I've got a great presentation today for you that was largely created by Vice President Al Gore, the founder and president of the Climate Reality Project. This is the climate crisis and its solutions. We like to call it Truth in 10. This is a great photo that is the it's called the blue marble because it's the one of the first photos that had the whole Earth in one place. It was taken by the Apollo 17 astronauts as they were flying off to the moon, and it really showed how small and vulnerable the planet Earth is. It is our Earth to protect or our Earth to destroy. Now, there's three main questions that we want to focus on. Must we change? Can we change? And will we change? The first one, must we change, needs a little bit of an explanation. So this picture right here, you can see is the atmosphere of the Earth. That thin blue line where the sun is shining through between the troposphere and the stratosphere, and you can see just how thin our atmosphere actually is. Now, so the solar radiation comes from the sun in straight light waves and hits our planet, and it passes through the atmosphere. About a little over half of it is absorbed by the Earth and warms it up, gives us light and energy and life. Now, about a quarter of it is radiated back into space in the form of infrared waves, kind of bounces off of the Earth. And about another quarter is trapped by the Earth's atmosphere and warms it. So this is what we call the greenhouse effect. Without the greenhouse effect, we would be living on a solid piece of ice, but it's all in the balance of how many particles of greenhouse gases we have in our atmosphere, and that's what controls the temperature and the climate. Those greenhouse gases include carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide, but the biggest one is carbon dioxide. Now, as the concentration of carbon dioxide increases, the temperature increases. And we are currently spewing 152 million tons of man-made global warming pollution into the thin shell of our atmosphere every 24 hours, as if it were an open sewer. And the sources of the greenhouse gas pollution comes from lots of different things that we do. Transportation, forest burning, coal plants, landfills, industrial processes, even thawing permafrost. But the biggest source of global warming pollution is the burning of fossil fuels. You can see the exponential growth in the burning of fossil fuels since World War II here. The global surface temperature has followed that same path of that exponential rise. And 2020 actually tied with 2016 as the hottest year ever. Now, 19 of the 20 hottest years on record have occurred since the year 2001. And the hottest of all have been in the last 5 years. The hottest 5 years in recorded history have been in the last 5 years. In Canberra, Australia, they set an all-time high record temperature of 111.2 degrees Fahrenheit on January 4th last year. In Ghana, they set their all-time record temperature, or the same temperature, a few months later in April. Temperatures throughout Europe in 2019, they experienced record highs, many different countries. In Russia, in Siberia, the temperature reached 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit in June 2020. That's the northernmost 100-degree temperature ever recorded and the highest temperature on record in the Arctic. Now, 93% of the extra heat trapped by man-made global warming pollution goes right into the ocean. So the ocean really acts as a buffer to the heat of the Earth from the greenhouse effect. But it also means that while the land is setting temperature records, so is the ocean. And so that has created a number of catastrophic events, such as here in 2020, the rare tandem storms of Marco and Laura caused destruction in the northern Caribbean before reaching the U.S. Gulf Coast. Here's some of that destruction in the Dominican Republic. So as temperatures increase, the oceans evaporate more moisture into the sky. So the evaporation causes more precipitation. Precipitation causes more water to return to the sea, and then there's more evaporation. So the whole hydrological cycle is really sped up as the temperatures rise. And as the hydrological system speeds up, it causes more of these large storms, such as here in the Philippines, in Bangladesh last May. The cyclone evacuation here in India was very difficult because so many people are facing the dual challenge of natural disasters and COVID-19. Now, Pope Francis says the gravest effects of all attacks on the environment are suffered by the poorest. The Poor People's Campaign says that lists ecological devastation as one of the primary evils. So the greenhouse gases we're emitting causes global temperatures to warm, which causes these catastrophic weather events, which disproportionately affect the poor. And that can be really deemed an evil. Global record-breaking precipitation anomalies really closely aligns with those record-breaking temperatures. So we've been seeing temperatures in recent temperatures and weather events in recent years that are really unprecedented. Here in Tennessee, torrential rains caused severe flooding along the Mississippi. Here's some severe flooding, 2019 in New Jersey. And in New Orleans, Louisiana, flooding in the U.S. disproportionately impacts black neighborhoods. So 2020 was a banner year for Black Lives Matter. But one of the issues of Black Lives Matter, aside from police brutality, is the brutality of our climate systems and our effect on the climate system. U.S. farmers were prevented from planting 20 million acres in 2019, mainly due to heavy rainfall and flooding. So, in the spring of 2019, flooding caused $20 billion in damages, including $6.4 billion in federal crop insurance payouts. Globally, floods and extreme rainfall events now occur 4 times more often than in 1980. 4 times more often. Here in Guangdong, China, 700,000 people were affected by flooding. In Kenya, 100,000 families were displaced by flooding last year. So the same extra heat that evaporates more water from the ocean, causing bigger downpours and floods, pulls moisture even more quickly from the soil, causing longer and deeper droughts. Groundwater levels in Europe were alarmingly low last summer. And here in Poland, they faced the worst droughts in a century. In the Czech Republic, it's really the worst in 500 years. So the more inland, so whether an area experiences drought or floods is often due to geography. So here in Colorado, we're expecting to face quite a lot more droughts. Just like here in Chennai, India's sixth largest city, which nearly ran out of water in 2019 as the reservoirs dried up. Here in the western US, hotter years typically have more fires. We sure know about that from last year. In Vacaville, California, 2020, there was 10,000 fires, which burned 4.2 million acres in California alone. That's twice the size of Yellowstone National Park. Of course, we're all very familiar with the dreadful fires that occurred in Australia just 6 months prior. And in South America, the Amazon has had massive wildfire years the last 2 years. And climate change is taking a massive toll in Southern Europe as well. So worldwide extreme weather catastrophes have been going up in all different types. Now it's also been taking a toll on glaciers and snowpack. Here's the difference between 1935 and 2013 of the same glacier in southwest Greenland. There's massive declines in the ice mass in Greenland, and the ice sheets in Greenland are melting 4 times faster than originally thought. In the Antarctic, it's also seeing record ice loss. And much of this is ice that has built up over the last 800,000 years. Top 10 cities at risk from sea level rise in 2070. So as the polar ice caps melt, the ocean levels rise and impact all these cities. Look, Miami, New York, combined, they've got assets of over $5 trillion. Some massive flooding in 2016 in Miami Beach, Florida. And in New York City, $129 billion worth of real estate now lies in the flood zones. So the U.S. Department of Defense says that climate change will likely lead to food and water shortages, pandemic diseases, and disputes over refugees and resources, and destruction by natural disasters in regions across the globe. Sure, you remember the refugees from Syria who dispersed throughout Europe in the middle of the last decade. Well, many of them were climate refugees because Syria faced an unprecedented drought that pushed people to the cities, caused a civil war, and pushed them out of the country. So climate change is also a medical emergency. Many different diseases have been spreading throughout the world due to the rising temperatures and the impacts of climate change. As climate change and humans expand further into Earth's remaining wild places, 5 new infectious diseases are emerging on average each year. And 75% of those are zoonotic, meaning that they are transmitted from animals to humans, like COVID-19. There's also so many deaths attributable to ambient air pollution. It's estimated that 7 million people, or 19,000 people, die from an early death from air pollution. And a study in China found that in cities with higher levels of air pollution had higher rates of COVID-19 infection. And here's the infection rates, or the death rates from COVID-19 in the US, which is twice as high for Black Americans as it is for white Americans. Then there's species. And we're at risk of losing 50% of all land-based species in this century. So let's talk about the cost of so many different costs for the carbon that we are releasing. And it's the number one threat to the global economy. So, must we change? Yes. Can we change? Well, we have the solutions at hand. Let's talk about green energy progress. 2000 projection worldwide wind capacity will reach 30 gigawatts by 2010. In reality, by 2019, that goal was exceeded by a factor of 22 times. Here you see the exponential growth of wind energy capacity. Solar energy progress. 2002, the projection was that the solar energy market will grow 1 gigawatt per year by 2010. In reality, the goal was exceeded by 17 times by 2010. By 2019, it was exceeded 121 times. Exponential growth of solar photovoltaic installations. The cost has dropped dramatically from $80 a watt in 1976 to $20 a watt now. In the Chilean solar market, you can see the growth in each of these years. 2018, it was about 2 gigawatts of installed solar. It just keeps going and going and going to over 16 gigawatts. So there's enough solar energy that reaches Earth every hour to fill the world's energy needs for a full year. The global cumulative storage capacity to store that solar and wind energy is rising every year, and it's projected to really take off in the next few decades. Auto manufacturers are moving more and more to electric vehicles. Look at all these that are working on delivering electric vehicles. The global electric cars on the road have hit over 7 million vehicles. So, can we change? Yes. Will we change? In 2015, the Paris Climate Agreement, every nation in the world agreed to work together to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by mid-century. The US briefly withdrew the day after the 2020 presidential election, but has since rejoined. Conventional energy stocks are the worst investments there are. Look how the stock market has increased over the last decade, and fossil fuels have slumped. 24 states representing 55% of the American people have formed the United States Climate Alliance. Started with California, New York, and Washington, and there's Colorado right in the mix. We've got our own climate action plan, and we're taking important steps to limit our greenhouse gas emissions. Over 240 global companies have made a commitment to go 100% renewable. Look at all these companies that are making that pledge. Google, Nike, New Balance, Dell, Visa. Then there was the climate strike of 2019. This was very important for me because this made me change careers and go back to school, study environmental policy, and find out what we can do to be most effective to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. So those who are join those who are using their voices, their votes, their choices to fight for their future and their community and the world. Use your voice, your vote, and your choices. Speak truth to power like your world depends on it. Because your world depends on it. Thank you. Happy Earth Day.